Mere Conservatism.
Cleve, you know what? I actually, believe it or not, watched a little bit of the Republican convention this week because the Braves were rained out on Tuesday. And
well, I'm glad you did.
I was actually really disappointed.
Because?
Well, they had Nick Sandmann speak.
Yeah,
you know, the Covington kid, the guy who had on the MAGA hat and got basically assaulted by the media.
Uh-huh.
You know the story, Nick Sandmann. Well, they failed to do the right thing with his intro. They did not play Metallica.
Okay.
When they introed Nick Sandmann. And I just think that was a real big whiff for the Republicans. And I'm very disappointed they didn't do that.
I hope you realize a lot of folks are not quite getting
With one eye open.
Because you're not really saying this seriously. This convention has been a home run to me so far. I have been pleasantly surprised to the point where I'm thinking about reaffiliating as a Republican because I basically identify myself as an independent because I'm conservative, and I felt the GOP had moved away from that more and more.
Yeah.
After this convention, though, I'm looking and saying, hey, I can identify with this party. I really can now.
I totally agree with you. They're doing a lot of the right things, and they're saying a lot of the right things. Instead of trying to couch their the views of the Republican Party in a way that is quote unquote palatable to the middle, to the moderate, and things like that.
Yes.
The squishy middle.
Yeah. Oh.
Instead, they are being bold about what they believe as Republicans.
Exactly.
And in turn, what I believe as a conservative. Like, for instance, on abortion, they're being very clear about how they feel about that and what their stance is on that. That had Abby Johnson speak on Tuesday. I saw a little bit of that as well. Powerful.
Yeah.
Very graphic about what abortion is. And I haven't heard that before from the Republicans.
It's a totally different tone because a lot of folks in the Republican Party have been trying to distance themselves from the pro-life wing.
Yeah.
And now
it's part of the platform, but they don't necessarily talk about it.
Yeah, we're not going to push it.
They just kind of take the pro-life vote for granted.
Yeah.
Kind of like Democrats do black people.
Exactly like they do minorities.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me say this before we go on. First of all, that's David Perry with some very coherent points, as usual, about the convention. I'm Cleve Walker, and yes, this is mere conservatism. But, David, getting back to the convention, before we get back to the convention, I want to stop and deal with something that's indirectly related to some of the things happening at the convention, but it's something that has burnt me up. Occasionally, you'll start our broadcast, and there's something that has really gotten to you. This has gotten to me, and it's a situation in Kenosha that has erupted again in more violence.
Ugly.
More shooting. Now, and again, even people on our side of the issues jump to conclusions because of the amount of video they saw and made a conclusion that, again, now for example, the Wisconsin Attorney General, his name was Josh Call. He recently gave an early update on the investigation into the shooting of Jacob Blake. That was a black man who was shot this past Sunday. And he began with the fact that police were responding to a call of domestic violence.
Kenosha Police Department officers were dispatched to a residence in the 2800 block of 40th Street after a female caller reported that her boyfriend was present and was not supposed to be on the premises. During the incident, officers attempted to arrest Jacob S. Blake, age 29. Law enforcement deployed a taser to attempt to stop Mr. Blake, but the taser was not successful in stopping him.
See, that one detail right there was something that was left out originally, because the first thing I heard people say, why couldn't they have used a taser first? You know what I'm saying? Why were they shooting them? Why were they using deadly force? At least use a... You follow me?
First of all, Cleve, everybody knows that the first things cops should do is tase you in the pinky toe. That's proper police procedure. You aim right for the pinky toe and you tase them there first because you don't want to, harm them too much.
Aren't you burnt up about this? Because here's the thing, and of course now, and this is really serious. The NBA, their players are saying, "Hey, we're just going to not play now. We're just going to go on strike until something is done." I am so tired these situations being played up where the police are instantly the villains, and the perpetrator, who we find out when we look at their background, are anything but the good guys. Mm-hmm. I'm so tired of this, David. It is just wearing me out.
And you can even forget about the background. You can just take this instance.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So, I mean, the backgrounds of these people, it is kind of interesting. They typically, when there's a controversy like this, things come out about their background, the things that aren't pretty. We all have things in our past that aren't necessarily pretty, so that's not unusual. But you sometimes you even find more about the event itself. So it's not even about their background, it's about that specific incidents. And when it comes to justice, Cleve, we need to be specific.
Yeah.
We need to be individual, and we need to be specific to that situation and what's happening.
Right.
And instead, what people tend to do is they see a 30-second video on Facebook, and then they rant and rave all day. By the time the story comes out, they've already done and said and thought everything that they're going to think about the situation based on very, very limited information. Look, the first thing I thought when I heard about what happened, because, well, let me just rewind for just a minute back in history to the Michael Brown case.
Okay.
You remember Michael Brown, hands up, don't shoot. And when I heard what happened, I was devastated and I was angry. And I could not believe the actions of the police officer.
Until.
Then I found out the truth. And I wasn't somebody that went on social media and ranted about it, but I remember having these feelings, being like, this is outrageous. This is awful.
Yeah.
Then I found out what really happened, and I vowed that I was not going to do that anymore. That I was going to find out what really happened.
The whole story.
The whole story, because if it's a bad shoot, it's a bad shoot.
Yeah.
But if it's a good one, it's a good one. Too many people, they go off half-cocked and they make determinations about these cases. And the first thing I thought was, number one, don't jump to conclusions. Number two, I got the information that this guy had warrants out for his arrest.
That's right.
For, by the way, sexually assaulting a minor and domestic violence.
Right.
So now that doesn't mean that the police should show up and shoot him. But I thought to myself, did the police, this is important, did the police know when they were on their way to the scene that they had a guy who was wanted for these particular things? And it turns out, we heard some audio, some dispatch audio. They did, in fact, get the name of the guy and that he was wanted for sexually assaulting a minor.
Well, David, I mean,
and domestic violence.
Again, we're not justifying anybody, even with a background like this, being shot unnecessarily. But
my point is, they knew that this was, okay, we have a dangerous person.
That's my point, yes.
You got a dangerous person, you go into that situation knowing that. They tried to arrest him. They wrestled with him. They tased him. He fought them, got up, went to his car, reached in, and Cleve, police don't have to wait for you to try to murder them before they respond.
They don't have to wait
force.
to see what he's coming out the
exactly.
car with. Exactly.
I mean, we don't know. He might have had some balloons for the police officers, but you can't do that in that situation. The police officers don't know, and in that case, it sounds like it could very well be a justified shooting. Now, of course, there's more details to come.
Yeah.
But seriously, guys.
But apparently, the point is, you have to get the rest of the info before you make a decision. And unfortunately, the media and the Black Lives Matters and all the people who have an agenda to try to create this image of the police have jumped on this. And the sad thing for me, David, is that the policemen who are involved in this, their lives will never be the same. They are going to be canceled. They're going to be attacked. They're going to be in danger, and their family members are going to be in danger because of the narrative.
Probably every police officer in Kenosha is going to be in danger because of this, because they don't actually know who the officers were yet. They haven't. I don't think that they have released that information.
But that's going to come out. I mean,
eventually it will.
It will. And so my point is, again, that this burns me up, both as an American and as a Black American, because I hate the fact that they're using what was once a legitimate civil rights issue. There was a time when Black Americans were discriminated against. There was a time when there were laws that were unjust. There was a time when things happened that needed to be corrected, that slavery needed to be abolished. This ain't that time.
Yeah. Justice is a buzzword, Cleve. And I got to tell you, justice has been bastardized in these situations.
Well, like so many other words.
Because justice is a thing. It has a definition. And justice requires truth.
Yes.
What the truth is absolutely 100% important. And I go back to Nick Sandmann, mentioned him a second ago. He mentioned in his speech that when he got castigated by the press, nobody reached out to him for his side of the story.
That's right.
Nobody investigated the motives of the guy who was banging the drum in his face. They didn't get the further video evidence to know what happened. They just attacked him.
Yeah.
And he said this line, which was very important, because the truth was not important.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's true in this case in Kenosha as well.
Yeah.
To a lot of people, the truth isn't important.
Not important.
The narrative is important, and the truth isn't.
Yeah.
If truth is not important, and you don't talk about what really happened and what the true situation is, then that's not justice. It has no relationship with justice whatsoever.
Great way to get us back to the convention that went on this past week, because I do want to go back there, but I just had to vent a little bit, and you helped me with those observations. The reason why this convention is important, they're telling us at the convention the things that the president and the Republican Party are going to run on. So what you're hearing is this is what we're going to be campaigning on. So that's why that's kind of important. And one of them is really important. Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn, she warns that the Democrats, what they want to do, and this is something the Republicans need to keep bringing up, the Democrats simply want to totally control Americans' lives.
If the Democrats had their way, they would keep you locked in your house until you become dependent on the government for everything. That sounds a lot like communist China to me. Maybe that's why Joe Biden is so soft on them.
Okay. But my point is, that's an important point.
Yeah.
The lockdown, the reason the Democrats are so reluctant of releasing their states, the ones who are in control by Democrat governors, this gives them the ability to tell them, not only will you do what we say, we're going to make it so you need to do it. Because you know what I'm saying? If they cripple the economy, then they create a need for the government to continually subsidize, and we have a helpless populace that's indebted to now a totalitarian government.
And I agree that this is a very important thing for Republicans to run on. They need to make the point that Democrats want to lock you in your homes and keep you there, no matter what is going on with COVID.
Right.
Doesn't matter what's happening with COVID, we're going to shut it down. That's the Democrats' line. And Republicans really need to drive that home and say, look, we're figuring this out. We're mitigating risk, but there's no reason you can't go to school.
Right.
And except that your governors won't let you. And there's no reason why you can't open your business.
Right.
There's no reason why you can't patron local businesses, except your government, your local government is saying you can't. Democrats are saying you can't. They want to keep you locked up. We want you to be able to assess your own risk and live your life. I think that's a very big argument, because COVID it's a big part of the campaign this year.
Yeah.
Democrats were banking on, I don't want to make it sound like Democrats made COVID happen. I was about to say something.
Although they're saying that's what Trump's done, but go ahead.
I was about to say something that might make it sound like that. I don't think that. Okay. I'm not some conspiracy. I'm not a plandemic kind of person.
Gotcha.
Okay. But what I'm saying is that Democrats coming into this year, Democrats needed an economic disaster. They needed one really badly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they got one with COVID.
Yeah.
They got it gift wrapped. So I'm not saying that they wanted it to happen, but I definitely think that they plan on using that to hurt Donald Trump. I will go as
far as to say is they don't want a resolution to the problem until after November.
I think that's right.
They don't want a vaccination before then. They don't want an effective treatment before then.
They may not even ever want it unless the solution comes from them.
That's my point. Exactly. So there's where we are. And again, this is a great campaign point to run on. Another speaker who is someone who is a rising star to me on the national scene for the GOP, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. She was there. And she brought up one of the campaign issues. She says this choice in this year's election is clear between these two men.
This year, the choice for Americans is between a man who values these ideals and all that can be built because of them, and a man who isn't guided by these ideals and coincidentally has built nothing.
Okay.
Ouch.
In other words, he's been in the political life on the national scene for 45-something years. I forget how long. No accomplishments to show for it, David.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. Not even as vice president. Nothing. And whatever you want to say about Trump, he has a life of accomplishment, projects that were done that are still evident to this day, involvement in causes that at one time he was celebrated for, but now he's denigrated for. Joe Biden is a swamp rat. He's been in D.C., but he has nothing to show for all the many, many years his constituents put him back there.
Yeah, he did have a couple of failed presidential runs, one that ended in him being shamed out of the race because he was plagiarizing.
I forgot
and
about that.
Then the other one, when he ran against Obama, that was just embarrassing. Oh. He barely polled at all. Yeah. Obama pulled him out of obscurity to be his VP, and that's the only reason anybody is interested in Joe Biden. He obviously, the thing that bugs me the most about Joe Biden is that he has been in Washington since he was like 29.
Right, and that's something. I mean,
he's 70-something now, yeah. And he has been a political congressman / senator / vice president his entire life, pretty much. And I'm just like, can we not have lifetime appointments to politicians? Is basically what Joe Biden has.
I'm for term limits, and I have been all the time for our senators and representatives, but that's me. But let me just say this. We need to make the issue on Biden for a number of reasons. The guy is literally hiding out, hoping to ride the tide of these polls, if you believe them, all the way into November, because as long as he, in his mind and his handlers' minds, as long as he stays hidden, out of the way, doesn't open himself to any serious press interviews, he's got this. So they're already trying to find ways to make sure that Biden doesn't even have to debate Trump.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many angles to look at this politically. You got Donald Trump in his convention talking positively about a lot of things to do, what the agenda is, what his beliefs are, and what the beliefs of the Republican Party are.
Right.
Democrats, on the other hand, basically have one thing, which is orange man bad.
That's it.
That's all they got.
I mean, it sounds funny,
not
but
Trump. And that really is what they're running on. So, if that isn't successful, if Donald Trump, his personality doesn't become the main focus of this election, which right now it's not the main focus of this election, I think Donald Trump is gonna win.
Yeah.
If his personality becomes the main focus, he loses. But if it's not, if the main focus is riots in Kenosha and all over the country and the radicals that are around Joe Biden, because it's not Joe Biden himself necessarily, although he's very left-wing, it's because he's not making it through his first term. And it's what he represents. That bureaucracy and that far left that's going to really be running things.
And you make a great point, and it shouldn't be that way. The personality of a person should not override the issues of the day, but that's all they have against Trump. And the fact that they're able to paint Biden as an affable, almost kind, grandfatherly-like figure. He's a really sweet guy. He's empathetic. He's got empathy. That's their big word. Trump doesn't have empathy. That's their thing against him. So for progressives, if you don't show empathy, you don't have that, then you're out of it. So you're right. That's all they got.
I'm tired of the word empathy. Are you?
Yes.
I've heard it so much
the way
from
they use
the left.
I'm tired of it because their word,
like empathy is the most important thing in the world.
Well, their idea of empathy is not my idea of empathy. To me, empathy is the genuine victim, the person who is truly helpless, the person who is truly in need of my help. I empathize and I want to help. I want to have compassion. I don't feel bad about every person who's had a hard break simply because that's not the same for everybody. Some people brought themselves into their situations. And far from needing my empathy, they need me to tell them, hey, listen, you've got to change. You've got to redirect your course of your life. I'm not going to pat you in the back and tell you everything's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. That's not the kind of empathy that people need in that situation.
Well, and Joe Biden had a line that I'm going to paraphrase, and I believe that it's a lie. He said something that his father said to him, which I refuse to believe that his dad was this dumb. Okay, so that's me being nice.
Okay.
I'm going to believe that it was a lie, that Joe Biden made it up, because there's no way his dad was actually dumb enough to say, son, I don't necessarily want the government to solve my problems, but I want them to care about my problem. That was the paraphrase of the line. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. This is the empathy thing. Are you serious? You would rather the government care about your problems than solve them. That is so stupid.
Yeah, but
why would you do a poll? I so want to see a poll. Take all the personalities out of it and ask people, you can only have one of these things from your government, or just leave government out of it. Just say one of these two scenarios from a person or something. They solve your problem, or they understand your problem, or they care about your problem. Which one? You can't have both. Which one do you want?
Yeah.
99% of people are going to say, please solve my problem. I don't care if you care. I don't care if I don't care if the president cares about my personal plight. I just want them to get out of my way. Yeah. And I don't want these problems.
But you're thinking like a conservative when you say things like that. What you don't understand, or at least not take into account this, everything the Democrats and liberals have done is to create a victim mentality. So once you get the victim mentality, then their kind of empathy does matter. In other words, somebody to come and tell you, David, oh, you poor little thing. Oh, you can't help this situation. Oh, we'll pat you on the back. Oh my goodness. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah, that's they're creating the type of person who needs their empathy.
But isn't it such a left-wing Democrat thing to promote the idea and actually act like it's a good thing that we won't actually solve your problems, but boy, we care. I feel your pain. I feel your pain.
Who said that? Yeah.
So, it's crazy to me to think that somebody would actually think that that's a good thing.
Well, there's another a point or two that came out during the convention. We only got a minute or two, and I want to try to get back to that. And it's the fact that the convention this week was about real Americans. I mean, not Hollywood stars and whatnot. And I think that's kind of important. At least Stefanik, GOP congressman, was on there. And that's the way she expressed it and says why that's important for Republicans as they are campaigning against the Democrats.
We heard a lot from Hollywood at the Democratic convention, but not a lot from everyday Americans. This week, the Trump campaign has highlighted how his policies and record of results have truly improved the lives of everyday Americans. This election is a clear choice, and voters are seeing that.
And to me, David, the best moments thus far that I've seen during the convention were when they had average, ordinary citizens up there speaking from their heart and sharing what was important to them, not as victims, but as people who are simply wanting to live the American dream by doing the very best they can.
Well, and I think the good ones go beyond Trump. It's not even really about what Trump is doing or Trump himself. It's about America.
Yes, I agree.
Because you can say, another way you can frame this election is America or question mark. Mm-hmm. Because one side wants to tear it down, get rid of it, uproot Western civilization. The other side appreciates America and what it's for. The guy that was born in Cuba, Alvarez, who spoke.
Oh, he was powerful.
It was incredible to hear him talk about how important America is and how important liberty and freedom in this country is because there's nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
And that contrast with people who you get on lefty Twitter and they literally say, I hate this country so much. I want it to burn. Yeah. I hate it. Yeah. Let's just get rid of it. I mean, there's people that actually think that, and we're seeing it on full display with BLM and with Antifa in cities all over the country.
Mm-hmm. And one of the most powerful moments, and give Trump credit, because I think he handled it well, even though, of course, he's been roundly criticized by the liberal media, was when he had the citizenship ceremony. I don't know if you saw that part.
I didn't.
They had American citizens, people who are being sworn in as American citizens from other countries. And the ceremony was actually done there with Donald Trump officiating and reading
That's
the
really
play.
Cool.
It was, David, it was one of the most powerful, because these guys, it was gals and guys, they were coming from countries and they were saying, we choose to be in America.
Were there any non-binaries?
Anyway, so my point is, while you got Hollywood starlets saying, "Hey, I want to leave the country if we have another 4 more years of Trump. I'm ashamed of this country."
And you got BLM and you got Antifa saying, "Burn it down. I hate this country."
Here were people from other parts of the world, and some of them were people of color who said, "We believe in the vision of America so much. We want to renounce where we came from, and we want to be part of that dream. We want to have the rights, privileges, and responsibilities that come with being Americans. And when you read that and you could see it in their eyes, I said, yeah, bingo. That's it. You know what I'm saying? That's the difference in the spirit between what the Democrats offer and what the Republicans are proposing.
Mm-hmm.
Pride of accomplishment in your country, and also the thing that comes out that, man, I want to get you to touch on this. We got about a minute or so. The importance of faith. See, pro-life was the main thing, but they also touched on freedom of religion and the fact that that is also enshrined and it's under attack. How important is that to you?
Yeah, well, they did talk about that quite a bit, and that's another thing. They pointed out the statement "free exercise thereof,"
right,
and what that means as far as practicing your religion in public,
not just singing in a church sanctuary and letting it stop there. Yeah.
I mean, you have Democrats who they don't want any faith, especially not the Christian faith, in public.
Yes,
they want basically they think government is God, and they don't say that, but that's when it boils down to it. That's what they think, and that's what they believe. That's another important thing that Republicans can stand out on and shine on. And guess what, Cleve? Here's the thing about President Trump. I didn't vote for President Trump in the primary, the Republican primary. I didn't like him. Mm-hmm. I said a lot of bad things about him.
I recall,
on this program and in my personal life. I don't know if anybody else does this. I'm not sure. I mean, there's a couple of Republican candidates that could have won, Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, who are men of faith. I'm not 100% sure that they approach this the same way that Donald Trump has. And I appreciate that about Donald Trump, even though I'm not sold on his, personal faith.
Mm-hmm. But by his actions.
But what he has done. He is a friend of the faithful.
I got to tell you, I agree. As a matter of fact, if things continue the way they are, I'm going to come out and say he's the most pro-life president that I've ever seen.
He's definitely the most pro-life president we've ever had.
And so for me, that decided it right there. Wow, David, good observations as always. And I'm Cleve Walker, David Perry, inviting you to join us for another edition of Mere Conservatism. And David, they can hear this broadcast again.
Yeah, check it out on iTunes. And we're also going to start putting it up on YouTube as well.
For sure. Have a great day. Keep the faith.